Okay, it is straight up 5 o'clock USA Eastern Time, and we've got another really big show. Really big show. We've got a special guest that's scheduled to come on, British HODL. Hopefully, he'll be able to make it, and we're going to talk about cigars, which I know very little about, but I have watched a few documentaries recently, and it is fascinating. Now, I'm talking about the high end hand rolled cigars. It's fascinating the amount of handwork and labor and the amount of time involved, in many cases, years, sometimes 5 to 10 years before what ends up being a cigar goes from seed to plant to drying to aging to rolling into a cigar. It's just all very fascinating. And I did put some links down in the description of this video to some YouTube videos that I watch to try to educate myself a little bit on this subject, and it's just fascinating. I'm a big fan of anything that is of high quality, anything that's special, especially things that take a lot of handwork and a lot of time to produce. Like, for example, this 002 stunner on my wrist and that diver right there. A lot of handwork goes into these watches, the high-end Grand Seikos. Handwork that doesn't go into a Rolex, to be quite honest with you. And so when I started learning about these cigars and handwork that goes into those, I became really intrigued. And of course, last week we had British HODL on the show, and I think he's popping in now. And he had a cigar, and he's had cigars in a lot of his videos. So I said, I've got to learn a little something about these high-end cigars and what's going on with these things because it's quite a history. Of course, the best cigars back in the day, I think a lot of people thought that they came from Cuba, and then a lot of those people were forced out of Cuba and went to other places. Dominican Republic produces a lot of cigars. Various places in Central America produce high-end cigars, and a lot of those people were Cubans that moved to those areas to actually produce those cigars that they could no longer produce in Cuba. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about all this. British HODL's getting ready, and we're going to talk about all of this. It's absolutely fascinating to me. And so, can you hear me, British HODL?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you for having me back on.
Yes. So we just started, and let's catch up on the comments real quick here. Stig says, "Good evening, Craig and everybody." And Patel Philippe says, "Hi, Craig. Do you prefer the O2 stunner, or would you rather have a gold sub?" If I went with a gold Rolex, I would go with the GMT, and I am kind of semi on the waiting list for the new gold GMT that they brought out. And so we'll talk about that after we do our thing on cigars. But in the meantime, let me show you the page that you want to follow British HODL at. This is his Twitter account that I'm showing right now. Let me go full screen with that real quick. So it's simple, British HODL on Twitter, and he posts every day. And if you miss out on those posts, I don't know what to tell you, you know, maybe have fun staying poor. Yeah, that sort of thing. So so let's back up here, British HODL. When did you get into cigars? Give me your backstory on cigars.
So I was sharing an office with a guy named Ryan in Canary Wharf in London when I was 17 years old. And then I turned 18 and we were sharing offices for, I don't know, 2 years. And one day he burst in and he said, "Hey, there's a new cigar lounge just opened up in Canary Wharf. Do you want to go check it out?" And I'd never smoked a cigar before. And I said, "Sure, let's go check it out. It looks cool in the movies." And we went and we had a smoke. And it was the single best experience that I'd had. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't do any of that. And cigars were a really great vice for me to have time to think. And one of the most special parts about cigars was, even though we had sort of shared offices for two years, that was the first time we had one of the most in-depth conversations ever about life. And that's what did it for me. A cigar to me is an opportunity to connect.
Yeah, it seems to be, especially the high-end cigars. And I want you to draw a distinction, because all the videos that I watched recently preparing for this show were all about the hand-rolled, higher end cigars that literally take years to produce. What's the difference between those and like a machine-made cigar that maybe can be produced a lot quicker? Or can you give us a 10,000-foot overview of what the real difference is between those?
Yeah, so a machine made cigar is one where a machine is involved from the start to the finish, right? They pick the tobacco, line the tobacco up, put it into the machine. The machine rolls the cigars and does, hundreds of them at a time. There is no care on the tobacco. There is no multi-point touch to see whether the cigar is good or not. The quality controls are much less, versus a premium cigar where the tobacco is looked after by the people that own the farms, to make sure it is absolutely perfect. Then the people who come and buy that tobacco make sure it is up to the standard of the cigars that they roll. And then it goes through, 100 to 200 touches for the final product to be presented to you, no matter how complicated or uncomplicated or special or not special the cigar is. The tobacco has been aged, it's been refined, it's been nurtured. It is a whole different experience compared to a machine made cigar.
Yeah, it was amazing watching those videos. And again, I encourage you all to watch them. The links are down in the description. They have the ladies at one step. They have ladies that are feeling the leaves and
Yep.
sorting them by feel.
Yep.
And they said that they have to use the ladies because their hands are more suited to doing that. And so they literally had a whole room full of these ladies that were sorting these tobacco leaves by touch.
Yep.
And that's just one step. There's like 200 steps like that these things go through. And then they went through the drying and how they do all that, how they put it at different levels in the drying like warehouse. And then once that's done, how they take them into that other room where they keep the humidity right and they rotate them,
Yep.
and just all these details. It's just, and to tell you the truth, when I watched all that, I was kind of surprised that you can even buy these cigars with all that work that goes into them. People say they're expensive, but I mean, considering all the work and the time, I don't think they're that expensive. So let's talk about price. The ones that you routinely smoke during your videos and so forth, where would you place that in the hierarchy of these high-end cigars?
I'm smoking premium cigars. I don't smoke anything else. I smoke premium cigars that are Cuban, premium cigars that are Nicaraguan, and I'll try other things as well. But Cuban is my favorite. Um, Nicaraguan, specifically Padron cigars,
Mhm.
have become one of my higher recommendations. Um, but yeah, like there's cigars that, these cigars start at, I don't know, $15 a stick, and will go up into the couple of hundred, few
Okay,
hundred.
so let's when we get there, let me put up a picture of the patrons here. Uh, there's some patrons that come in like a box, like a set that looked real interesting. And while
So
we're at this,
let me tell you something about these cigars, right? So these are the family reserve edition of Padron cigars. These
okay,
cigars are hand rolled. Like, for example, the 75th anniversary is hand rolled by one roller in the whole
okay,
company. So
okay,
if they're not well, that cigar doesn't get rolled. It's as simple as that. One roller rolls every single cigar. Padron also has, a very very unique thing about them, and why, like, you can't really see it on that picture, but I'm gonna try and see if I can zoom in on this.
okay. Let me pull this one off, and I'll make you full screen. Just give me a second here. Okay, yeah, put your hand behind it. Yeah, back
Right.
off just there, right there. Now, okay,
There you
now
go.
we're
You
getting
can
it
see it.
right
Right.
there.
So you
Yeah.
see the label here?
Hmm.
Underneath that is a number here, right? Now that number is a serial number that gets put onto every single stick. They can put that serial number into their database, know where the tobacco came from, when it was rolled, who rolled it, who they sold it to, and like that is quality control. So even though I'm
Yeah.
a Cuban cigar fan and I love Cuban cigars above all else, Padron as a company are the single best curators of tobacco in the world to me.
So, okay, you're talking about premium cigars and you're giving a price range of $15 to $20, then on up. And
Yeah,
so when you say, when you get up into the higher prices, are these like collectors? These are ones that maybe have been around for a number of years.
yeah.
They're
So
rare.
this is a 2012 limited edition. It's probably $200 for that stick.
Oh, okay.
This is a Cuban Montecristo limited edition for 2012. Um, this is probably, I don't know. I don't even know what the prices are now for these, but maybe $350 a stick, which is a Cohiba limited for the Partagas festival. It's a festival edition cigar. So people that were there for the festival would have got
Okay.
this cigar and nobody else. Um,
So,
yeah,
so,
there's like
so
specific things like that.
it's very similar to watches and other collectibles and so forth, where there's all kinds of special cigars that are sought after and that become desirable. And then, of course, there's the question of how you store them. You store them properly,
Yeah,
in a humidor or whatever. Um, and then they have these high end places where you go and you smoke them, right?
yeah,
For lack of a better term. Um, so it's a whole thing. And now it went through a real boom in the 90s, which was before you took up the hobby, I'm sure.
yeah.
There was a real boom time where the prices got totally insane from what I understand. And then that kind of cooled off. And then now we're seeing another resurgence where they've gotten popular again, maybe with
Yeah.
people like Joe Rogan talking about cigars and other influencers, BritishHODL. Now all of a sudden cigars are getting popular again. And it's, of course, they can only create so many of these because they've only got so many hands. A lot of hand work goes into these premium cigars. So obviously the number are limited that they can physically produce. So do you see the prices holding up good right now, or is there
Well,
a pullback like there is with watches,
there
or
will
where are
be
we?
there won't be that much of a pullback with Cuban cigars. So this is a Partagas D6. This is one of the most simplest standard release Cuban Partagas cigars that you can produce. This cigar outperformed real estate in the last 14 years.
Okay.
Just that's, and I'm not talking about prime real estate. I'm talking about
Yeah.
average real estate.
Yeah,
This
sure.
cigar itself outperformed that.
So you have, I'm assuming some of those cigars you showed me are like your collector cigars that maybe you might smoke on a really special occasion, like maybe when Bitcoin hits 100,000, maybe you'll smoke one. Um, is this, and then you have your regular $15 to $20 cigars that would be something you would smoke on a daily basis. Is that
That's
an
right.
accurate summary?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's a picture. We talked about hand rolling. Here's a picture of a gentleman rolling a cigar. And again, you want to go and look at the video. And then here's an older gentleman here working with some leaves and so forth, getting ready to roll. And then I do want to talk to you about lighting them. I've got a little video clip here to play, which again is from a video that I put the link down below. This is on lighting a Cuban cigar. Here we go. Let's roll it.
You want to rush it. It can be so tantalizing when you're ready to have a cigar, but if you can be patient with this stage, you will be rewarded. Many people put the cigar straight into the mouth and light it. You can do that, but then you're adulterating the first puff, what I call the magic first experience of the cigar. So be patient, do it like this.
So in that whole clip, he basically used the DuPont lighter, similar to the one you have, I'm sure, and he was using a yellow flame.
Yep.
And then he also demonstrated using a blue flame later. Talked about the differences. But anyway, it took him a while, right? He was rotating it, and then he would periodically take it and like kind of swing it around a little bit, and then take it back, and he got it to just the way he wanted it. And then he handed it to the other gentleman who took the first puff. And
Yep.
he said, when you do it that way, that first drag, that first puff is very special.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same method that you use with your cigars?
Yeah, the thing that you have to remember, what happens generally in America, because you guys have more Nicaraguan and Dominican tobaccos, you guys take the cigar and you'll puff on it, and you'll have the flame here, and you'll puff on it, and you'll light the cigar while the flame is touching it. The problem with that is that it works on a cigar that lights quickly, because otherwise too much heat travels through the cigar. Whereas the way that Eddie did it in that video is it allowed the cigar to be lit the right way, which is toasting the tobacco. I don't like it when people say, I'm going to light my cigar. Because when people say, I'm going to light my cigar, what they assume is you're going to take a flame like that, jam it straight in the face of the cigar, and burn the shit out of it. And it ruins the taste of the cigar. You need to toast the cigar. It is a natural product. It is a Mother Nature product. This is not something that you can just sort of violently incinerate, right? This is not something you could drop a bomb on, unfortunately, for my American friends. So you need to slow down, light it with patience, toast the cigar, take the time for that, for the oils in the cigar to heat up and toast. And then once you do it, the reason why what he does is he does this on the cigar. It's because you want to get a little bit of airflow through the cigar to allow the heat to start traveling and to warm up.
So you know this gentleman. You referred to him by name.
Yeah, Eddie Sahakian.
Okay. So now take a look at this video clip and see if you can identify some of these cigars.
You'll recognize La Reina, of course.
Oh, yes, of course.
You know it well. So this and this are the El Rey del Mundo La Reina. Beautiful cigar. I've got a Bolivar Britannicus Extra here from 2011. It's a regional edition produced in a very unusual format and quite a beefy cigar.
Wow.
We have La Flor de Cano Short Robusto. This, I believe, was also 2011, may have been 12. What I can tell you is it was done before this one, because on the band it says Exclusivo Reuno Unido, which is how the Cubans used to describe the United Kingdom regionals, and then they changed it to Gran Bretaña.
Oh, really?
So whenever you see Gran Bretaña, that's a later regional for the UK, and it's a rather rare beast.
So what do you think? What do you think of the selections?
Good cigars. So what Cuba does is they'll release special edition cigars that are only available for certain jurisdictions. So all of the cigars that he showed there were over the years released specifically for the UK market, which is still the best market for Cuban cigars to this day.
Because they were always legal there, right? They didn't outlaw them?
Sure, but we've had we've had a relationship with Cuba for cigars for such a long time. And we actually have something in the UK called an EMS stamp. So when you buy a box of Cuban cigars from the UK, on the box, it will have a sticker that says EMS, and that stands for English Market Selection. So what happens in Cuba is they roll the best cigars, and they go in through and find what the best sticks are, and they get boxed and shipped to the United Kingdom first, and then the rest of the cigars get distributed around the world. That is the English Market Selection. That's why the best Cuban cigar that you will smoke will be in the United Kingdom, even including Cuba. So we get our cigars sent out first from the batches that are made.
All right, so we've got some comments backed up. I'm going to blast through them real quick. Craig, you look sensational. Well, thank you. Who is this Jenga? Jenga. What is Jenga? I don't know what that means. Does that mean good-looking guy? That's BritishHODL. BritishHODL in the house. And if you don't follow him on Twitter, like I say, have fun staying poor. BritishHODL, all one word. Okay, let's go on. Craig, is the definition of sophisticated elegance the way he talks? His style is beyond. What are you trying to do? You trying to hustle and get some Bitcoin here? Get a Bitcoin donation or something? Drew Estate, uh, uh, number 9. Do you know that
Yeah,
cigar?
it's a Liga Privada. They've suddenly caught on a lot of steam. Personally, I think they're good cigars. I prefer Padrons, but suddenly Liga Privadas have caught on a lot of steam in the cigar world.
Okay. So let's see. My favorite cigars are hand rolled. Okay, there you go. Merpur.
I think that person is trying to troll you.
Oh, okay, he's trolling. Somebody else trolled up above saying cigars are bad for your health. A lot of things are bad for your health. Jumping off a building is bad for your health too, but you know. Let's see. BritishHODL. Do you like
Yeah, that's a
any?
troll as well.
That's trolling. The people trolling.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything worth showing here. Patron, true. Okay. Okay. So that's good for the comments. All right. So obviously, most of the people are going to view this after the fact. We've only got like 7 live viewers right now, 8, because whenever I do something that's not about watches, I don't get that many people tune in. But hopefully, the algorithm and all will pick up on this, and I've got a lot of keywords in the description and the right links and all that. So hopefully, some people will learn something about cigars. Let's pivot a little bit to Bitcoin, because you've been putting out content on a daily basis.
You like it?
About Bitcoin, really solid content.
I appreciate it.
What kind of feedback are you getting? Because some of the things you say would not necessarily be super popular with the hardcore Bitcoin maxis. But
yeah, there's always good and bad feedback. My litmus test is, do I believe this? And if as long as I believe it, and as long as I firmly believe what I'm about to press release on, it goes out. And so far, I haven't deleted a recording yet. So I'm just telling it how I think it is. I'm completely open to being proven wrong. But this is, I think that the perspectives that I have, people should be aware of. Otherwise, they're going to miss out on quite a bit.
So we saw a little bump up in the price here recently. And of course, I've been telling people for years here on the channel, and I actually have a clip that I can play that when Bitcoin was $4,000, I was telling people to sell their steel Rolexes and buy some Bitcoin. Let's play that one real quick, and then we'll. Absolutely. But I would suggest that some of these people that have a ton of steel Rolexes, I would suggest that while the market is hot right now, that they liquidate a couple of those surplus watches and buy themselves a couple of Bitcoin. And I don't give financial advice, but I would do that. I think that would be a good move. So what do you think? When Bitcoin was $4,000, you think that they should have sold a couple of steel Rolexes?
Well, I did. So I sold all my I sold all my Rolexes in 2020 and got into Bitcoin.
So here we are now at 26,000 thereabouts. I would argue that Bitcoin is still a steal at the current prices. And I would also argue that it is de-risked, that there's not nearly as much risk as there was back then when it was $4,000.
Yep.
That it's a solid investment right now. And this is another thing. That's why a lot of the Bitcoin maxis push back on me when I talk about Bitcoin as being an investment. So it's not an investment. Well, I'll put it this way. Anything that I can put my money into that I think is going to grow significantly and become significantly more valuable, I call that an investment. They can call it whatever they want, but you're literally owning a part of the Bitcoin network in effect when you own Bitcoin. And as that network grows, you're going to enjoy the benefit of that. Is there something that I'm not seeing here when I say that? How am I incorrect?
I don't think you're incorrect. I think there's a lot of purists that have their opinion on what something should be called. And that's absolutely fine as well. I respect their right to say Bitcoin is not an investment. It's more than an investment. That's cool too. You know, I'm just speaking to the $130 trillion of capital that believes it's an investment at this point. In the future, it might change.
Yeah, and it's unique in that you really have zero risk if you self-custody it properly. Yeah, that's the thing. You have to know how to take care of your Bitcoin, obviously, but you don't have the risk of a hurricane destroying it. You don't have the risk of a government agency destroying it.
It's the
All those
only
ships have sailed.
it's the only scalable asset that can be held as a bearer instrument. Because while this has outperformed real estate, I can't scale this, right? I can't put $50 million, $100 million into cigars. So yeah, it's the only scalable asset that is a bearer instrument at the same time.
And also with things like cigars and or collector cars or art, there are maintenance costs and storage
Right.
costs and so on. There's a lot more carrying costs than you have with Bitcoin. I have virtually zero carrying cost with my Bitcoin that's in cold storage.
Yeah, I mean, look, I collect watches as well, and that watch, I bought it, and a year and a half later, it needed a service, right? And the service cost me £1,000. That's a cost that has to be added on that I have to pay for now, even though I don't have any liquidity on the asset. So Bitcoin is the only asset that you can take a bearer up position on. You can get liquidity anywhere in the world and doesn't require ongoing cost to carry. Like, what is the cost to carry for Bitcoin? There is none.
Yeah, I have to believe that in the next year or two, the vast majority of high net worth individuals are going to wake up and realize this. And I think some of them they've already woken up, but they just are maneuvering. Like the gentleman we had on last week, Eric, he's selling some real estate right now so that he can buy more Bitcoin. He's already bought Bitcoin with his liquid money, but he's literally selling a piece of real estate right now, and he priced it aggressively because he wants to get out of that real estate as quickly as possible and get into Bitcoin. It's still going to take him months, even with a quick sale,
right?
To settle that and so forth and get the Bitcoin. So there's a lag, right? There's a lead time from when these people wake up and realize they've got to have a position in Bitcoin. There's a lag to when they actually act. And
well,
why?
Sorry to interrupt, but you know why watches took off during the last bull run, right? Because guys realized that I can buy $1 million worth of watches in London, fly to Dubai, and liquidate $1 million worth of watches, and no one's going to ask me any questions.
Yep.
Right? So suddenly Richard Mille became the store of value choice for Emirati multimillionaires.
Exactly. And as those people start to realize that Bitcoin is a better solution for that, right? I think it's going to be here comes everybody.
Absolutely. So hopefully that's the case. The good news is if that's not the case, then there are probably 4,000 people in the world whose daily job and life purpose it is to keep those people wealthy, who will be looking at it because BlackRock's now in the game. So even if the wealthy people don't wake up to it, the 4,000 to 5,000 people that advise them will be looking at it.
I was just listening to a podcast. There's a gentleman by the name of Rick Edelman, R-I-C Edelman, and he's been a longtime financial advisor, and he used to have a really popular radio show for decades here in the Washington, D.C. area on the big AM station in downtown D.C., and he's been into Bitcoin. He always refers to it as crypto. I keep trying to tell him, hey, it's Bitcoin, not crypto. But anyway, he always talks about crypto, and he's been in. He was early, right? And so he's one of the few financial advisors that's respected around the country that has always been talking about you need a allocation to Bitcoin. And
Yep.
he just had a big conference recently down in Texas where he released some podcasts from that, and talking very bullish on Bitcoin. So when you hear people like that are, he's probably older than me, that are pro Bitcoin, that have been financial advisors for many decades, that tells me something, because other financial advisors listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole conference was a conference of financial advisors. Okay.
Yep.
So, and then you have the conferences that Michael Saylor did with corporate treasuries. And then the recent one he had about Lightning Network and integrating that into businesses.
The flood
It's
is
all
coming.
happening.
Yes, the flood is coming. Unfortunately, for a lot of the flood to come, you're going to have the gatekeepers of those funds have to be convinced first. And the biggest step for that was BlackRock coming into the game, because nobody has ever been fired for recommending what BlackRock has said to recommend to their clients.
Yep.
So BlackRock coming in was the moment that everyone's been talking about.
Exciting times are ahead.
Absolutely.
Bitcoin HODL. Okay, so
BritishHODL.
I guess BritishHODL. I keep doing that. So I guess I've got to pivot. I guess I have to get some more Bitcoin. I have been happy with my Bitcoin stash. Again, I bought the one extra Bitcoin to use to buy the watch and the Lexus when it hits 100,000.
Yep.
I think I might need to buy a few more Bitcoin.
I think you
that's,
might too. I think me and you are both short Bitcoin. I mean, I've probably got 3 Bitcoin sitting there. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to reevaluate.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for all that information. What else? What else is going on in your life? Do you speak Spanish, by the way?
Poquito. My Spanish is very, very bad.
So are you learning down there?
I'm trying to learn. But my focus right now is very, very zoned in on the mission that I have to help people understand why they need Bitcoin. So everything else, including me speaking Spanish, including, anything else that I had going on in my life, has taken a back seat to making sure that the message gets out there one way or the other. That's why I'm spending time doing interviews on like on YouTube or these discussions with you, or just the videos that I'm putting out, or the tweets that I'm putting out. Like that to me is the number one priority at this point. And here's the reason why, because I can see an end time for it. It's not like this is my urgency because I think this is going to be it for the next 15 years. I think there's maybe 8 years left for my voice to be important.
Yeah, it's going to come to the point where everybody's going to know about Bitcoin, and it's not going to be anything new. It's like you don't have podcasts talking about the US dollar
or the internet,
right? Although we
example.
should. Yeah, you don't have podcasts talking about the internet itself, right? And so yeah, it's just going to become a normal. Okay, so here's a question. Bitcoin versus Daytona Le Mans at retail. Which is a better investment?
That's got to be Bitcoin. You're not going to catch me on that.
Well, if you got a Daytona at retail from the AD, what you do is you immediately flip it and then you buy Bitcoin.
The problem with that is you can do that once in your life, right? Because then the AD is never going to give you another watch ever again. So that's the problem with that. It's a short-term thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I did a video back. I've done several of these Rolex or Bitcoin videos. I did one at 4,000 that you saw. I did one at 10,000. I've done several, and every single time the people watching were saying, "I'll take the Rolex." And every single time,
That's the
years
luck.
later, it was a bad decision.
That's the luck.
So I don't know. I'm trying my best, British HODL. I'm trying my best to steer these people in the right direction, but hopefully having somebody else on like yourself that they're not hearing it from the same guy, maybe it'll sway some of them. I don't know. I don't know what else
Look,
I can do.
look, at the end of the day, our job, because we have chosen it to be our job, by the way, this is not something that, we have been told to do, is to highlight people and educate people on the urgency of what's going on here. And then people are of their own free will to make the decision to act on that urgency or not. And I'm completely comfortable with that. I'm completely comfortable with someone hearing everything I have to say, hearing everything you have to say, and then saying it's not for me. I'm completely comfortable with that. What I'm not comfortable with is me not ramming this information down their throat as hard as I can. So, I'm a capitalist. So I believe in free markets. You have the complete freedom to not listen to me, and I have the complete freedom to continue shouting in your face for as long as you'll keep your ears open.
And the thing is, what you said at the beginning of that, this is a time sensitive thing.
Right.
That's the issue.
Right.
Is the longer these people wait, the more screwed they're going to be.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And I'm not talking about timing the market with the 4-year cycles and all that. Let's think long term here. This window of opportunity for getting, let's say, sub $50,000 Bitcoin is limited, very limited. My
Yeah,
buddy,
Bitcoin,
if he's lucky and he sells and he settles quick enough, if he's lucky, he's going to be able to get Bitcoin sub $50,000 with his real estate money. But he better get busy, right? And he is. If he were to drag his heels a couple of years, I think
it's game
he'd
over.
be screwed. He'd be
Yeah, it's
screwed.
game over. That's the thing. Like, I definitely, Bitcoin prices out certain economic classes, right? So it's already priced out the lower class of the entire world. It's already priced out the middle class this cycle, right? The next one it will price out is, because even if you are upper middle class, it's really hard to liquidate, whatever savings you have to put $25,000 to $50,000 into a Bitcoin when you don't know anything about it. You got no experience investing, et cetera, et cetera. It's tough to do that. So it's priced out being able to control one Bitcoin for the middle class. The next one will be low single-digit millionaires around the world, right?
Yep.
And then it will be higher single-digit millionaires around the world, and then it will be, ultra high net worth individuals. Because if Bitcoin price is $4 million a coin, for example, or $1 million a coin, if you're worth,
and we're talking about in today's purchasing power.
Yeah, like if you're worth, let's say $30 million, right? What's the ultra high net worth? I think it's $36 million. If you're worth 36, let's say $36 million, it's really hard to liquidate assets to make a $1 to $5 million investment, because most of your wealth is going to be tied up in assets. If you're currently worth $3 million, for example, right, and Bitcoin goes up to 250, 300,000 a coin, it's really tough to liquidate 10% of your net worth to put into an asset that you don't know anything about at that point. So
and Eric's a perfect example of that, where he has to go through that. He's got to liquidate some of his real estate so that he can pivot into Bitcoin, and it takes time and effort.
Yeah, because it's not like you can buy it's not like you can sell a room in a house, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to sell the whole house, even if you don't want to.
Now here's the YouTube channel. Let me make this full screen that you want to subscribe to if you want to watch his videos on YouTube, British HODL. So it is British HODL 23 is the @ symbol. But if you just search British HODL, it'll come up, no problem. So that's how you find his YouTube channel. He puts his videos up there as well. He puts them on Twitter, and on he's got the check mark, so he can put the longer length. And that's the other thing. A lot of these guys, I'll never get the check mark, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of benefits to having the check mark. If you're using the platform and you want to get the most out of it, you want to have the freaking check mark. on Twitter, on X.
Yeah,
Whatever the hell
listen,
they call it.
that's not even a debate that I'm willing to enter into with anyone. I think it's stupid. Like if you're an anonymous person, you have no desire to be um, trying to get the message out in the best way possible to people, and you don't want the blue check mark. Cool, no problem. You don't have to get it. Nobody has to get it. But for me, my mission is more important than what that blue check mark means. So I'll have the
Yeah.
blue check
Yeah,
mark.
and I don't mind paying for a service that I use on a daily basis.
Hmm.
This attitude that everything on the internet should be free, I just think that's kind of ridiculous. But I'm old school. But
My,
all
my
right, so let's see.
experience, my experience on Twitter is significantly better after paying for it.
Yeah, well,
Simple as
there's
that.
just being able to put whatever length video you want on there makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you can think of that we have not touched base on as far as the cigars? If we circle back to those, did we make all the major points on those?
Yeah, so just basically take time to learn about cigars. The beautiful thing about the cigar community is that anywhere you go to in the world, if you find the local cigar lounge, there will be men and women in there that will help you understand cigars. So you don't have to be intimidated by it. It is also the only vice where you can walk in and smoke this cigar or this cigar. This one is like $16 and this one is maybe $300. And as long as you got a cigar lit in your mouth, you're going to be part of the community, right? It's not like this
Yeah.
fancy wine bullshit. Oh, I'm drinking a Rothschild. I'm drinking this. I'm drinking that. None of that, right? It's not like you go into a watch meetup and someone's got a Patek Philippe and someone's got a Rolex and someone's got a Cartier. So there's a hierarchy instantly built in. With cigars, as long as you are smoking a cigar, you're part of the same club. And that's one of the most beautiful things about the whole community. So just go into your local cigar lounge, start learning, start exploring.
Now, are the cigars the type of thing where you don't really get addicted to them to where you have a major craving like cigarettes? In other words, could you smoke a cigar today and then wait a week and smoke another cigar?
Yeah, I just had to. I had a minor surgery on this past Monday. And obviously, as I'm sure you know, for surgery, you got to stop taking nicotine, right? So I
Okay.
had my last cigar on the Sunday, and I haven't smoked all week. And I won't for another 2 weeks or whatever it is. So
And it doesn't bother you. You don't
no,
like lose your mind, start
no,
climbing up the walls.
no. It's not like cigarettes where there's 120 different chemicals in the cigarette and you are inhaling the smoke. With a cigar, the smoke is in your mouth. You're not inhaling it.
Mhm.
You don't inhale cigar smoke. It's very dangerous. So you leave it in your mouth and you blow it out, and that's it.
Okay, but you still get some benefit from the nicotine? It still
Yes.
comes in through your cheek or something?
Yes.
But would that be a smaller amount than you get from a cigarette, for example?
So there's 20 times more nicotine in this than in a cigarette. However, a cigarette has 120 different chemicals that are also designed to get you addicted to smoking it. The difference
Okay.
here is that the smoke is in your mouth, whereas with a cigarette, the smoke goes into your lungs and is absorbed into your lungs.
Okay. And it's designed to be more addictive, sounds
It's
like.
literally chemically designed to be more and actually addictive.
Yeah.
Whereas cigars, like I said, anyone can stop. I always stop every now and then, right? So I'll just decide, okay, I'm going to take 3 weeks off or 4 weeks off or whatever, not smoke a cigar, and that's it. By the way, a funny story. So in 2019, I had pneumonia, and I was in hospital checked into hospital for pneumonia because it was so bad. And the specialist walked in. It was a private hospital in London, and the best specialist in London walked in to check my stuff. And the first question I asked him was, "Is this anything to do with smoking cigars?" Because
Mhm.
that's what I was most worried about, because that's my bad habit, right?
Yeah.
Without even taking a breath, the only thing he said was, "Do you smoke cigarettes?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Don't worry about the cigars. It's all good." So
Oh,
listen, I can only listen to my experts.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm just going down the rabbit hole, so I have to do some more research, but it seems like they're super cool. and it seems like it's something you can really enjoy. And as you just said, you can enjoy it periodically.
I guarantee you one thing. If you walk into any city, if you're new to any city and you just go to the local cigar lounge in the city, you will have the best friends that you could ever think of, because every person that smokes cigars is cool. You will have a great time. Everyone will welcome you in. There will be no animosity, no nervousness, nothing. You will be immediately part of the gang.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like Bitcoin meetups too, because
Sure.
Bitcoin meetups in person, the people are usually really decent and really nice. It's not like crypto Twitter, right? It's like, yeah, even the people that are nasty on crypto Twitter, Bitcoin Twitter, all of those are decent usually in person.
Yeah.
They do a pivot or something for the in-person event. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything.
Cool.
Unless there's anything you can think of that we haven't touched on.
No, the only thing that people need to focus on is, regardless of whether you smoke cigars or not, there's still only 3 rules to Bitcoin. And that is, step number 1, you got to buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you're going to get fabulously wealthy.
Absolutely. But now, how come you and I aren't shutting up about it, though? That's just for the normal person. They have to shut up.
So do you know how many times I get asked that? Like, so why do I have to shut up about it once I get it? It's just a fucking metaphor. Like, it's just an idea. It's like, just buy Bitcoin, stay calm, right? And then you get fabulously wealthy. I don't actually mean shut your mouth about it.
Yeah. See, here's the problem. The incentive of Bitcoin is for you to talk about it.
Right.
It just is. I mean, people that would normally stay quiet about an investment or whatever, right? When they get into Bitcoin, it's usually not the case, right? They usually want to talk to you about it, and they want to talk to other people about it, to the point where you end up losing friends, right? It's like,
Yeah, but
I don't want to hear about this thing.
The reason is, like, for when I was in property, for example, if I found a really great property deal, I couldn't tell you about it, because if you were competing in that space too, you would now know my deal and you'd be able to go make a better offer. Whereas with Bitcoin, there's none of that. The only advantage that I have over you is what price I got in at. That's it. So there is complete information transparency across the network and across the investment. And the only thing that matters is, what price did you buy at? That's phenomenal.
So on that particular point, though, if your Bitcoin stack isn't what you want it to be, in other words, you're still aggressively accumulating, it probably is best to not say anything, right? Because obviously, the more people that know about it, the more people buying it, it's going to be harder for you to get your stack.
Sure, but the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is everyone knows about it at the exact same time in the world. So at that point, it's not worth you shutting up about it or not. BlackRock is here now. So the average person watching this stream or my videos or anything, you're behind the 8 ball. So you better catch up. Like, you worrying about, I better not tell anyone about this, is making zero difference now. That's a
better just get busy and just get the Bitcoin like now.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at the fact that 900 Bitcoin a day are coming into the system and they're being snatched up, right? Yep. That's not peanuts.
Right.
Just at 26,000 a piece, 900 Bitcoin every day, that tells me something right there.
Yeah,
that I think there's buyers.
I think FundStrat's analysis team found that it was taking around $25 million of purchasing daily to maintain the equilibrium price of Bitcoin. So there's purchasing going on. And with an ETF coming out, it's going to be, an additional $100 million a day.
All right, folks, you heard it here. You heard it here first. All right, give us one more time the 3 points, and then we're going to wrap this puppy up.
So it's step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.
All right, BritishHODL in the house. Thank you. We're going to end this puppy.